The Effect of the Kids Court School on Children's Resiliency, Remote Delivery, a presentation by Elizabeth Messina on research conducted by Elizabeth Messina and Dr. Rebecca Nathanson. Due to federally and state-mandated stay-at-home orders during the COVID-19 pandemic, children were placed at an even greater risk of abuse and neglect. This occurred due to increased caregiver stress factors such as increased daily care responsibilities due to virtual schooling, financial instability, isolation from friends and family, and a lack of support systems in caregiving due to stay-at-home orders. While court proceedings and functionality was initially disrupted, child victims of alleged abuse continued to be subpoenaed and required to appear in court, both in person and virtually, as witnesses in child welfare and/or criminal proceedings. Coping with the demands of the system is challenging for adults, but even more so for children who are still developing the necessary cognitive, communicative, and emotional abilities to cope with confusion and distress at the same time as they are called upon to provide reliable information under formidable circumstances. Children's knowledge of and experience with the legal system, however, is often limited, replete with misconceptions or unrealistic fears. Ensuring that children are well prepared for the challenges of the courtroom is a growing response to this dilemma. This study evaluated the Kids Court School at UNLV, a Harvard Award-winning program designed and developed by Drs. Rebecca Nathanson and Karen Saywitz. This well-established program has served over 1,600 children. Kids Court School includes 3 components: court education about pretrial and trial processes, including the roles and functions of courtroom participants, stress reduction training, and a mock trial. This program has been shown to significantly reduce children's court-related stress. The goal and purpose of this study is to evaluate the effects of the remote delivery of the Kids Court School program on court-related stress in children and youth with impending legal proceedings, to support its continued use post-pandemic as a way of reaching and servicing a larger population. Previously delivered only in a face-to-face format, however, the COVID-19 pandemic and UNLV closure to the general public necessitated the development of a remote delivery version of the Kids Court School program. This study used a pre-test, post-test design to evaluate the effects of remote delivery of the KCS program on child witnesses with impending legal proceedings. Participants were child witnesses ages 5 to 13 with a mean age of 10, participating in criminal and/or child welfare cases. The pre- and post-test measure was the court-related stress scale developed by Drs. Rebecca Nathanson and Karen Saywitz specifically for use with this program. It is a 10-item measure that assesses children's perceptions of the degree of stress associated with various court-related experiences, such as having an attorney ask you questions in court or answering embarrassing questions in court. Participants rate each experience on a 5-point Likert scale, 1 being not stressful or not upsetting, 5 being very, very stressful or upsetting. The intervention includes 3 components: court education about pretrial and trial processes, including the roles and functions of courtroom participants, stress reduction training, and mock trial. The study procedure includes children being administered the court-related stress scale pretest, children participating in both sessions of the Kids Court School program. The duration between sessions is typically 1 week. And lastly, children are administered the court-related stress scale post-test. Participants were child witnesses ages 5 to 13 with a mean of age 10, participating in criminal and/or child welfare cases. The range of pre-test totals was 26 to 50 points with a mean score of 33.5357 points and a standard deviation of 7.07233. The range of post-test totals were 19.5 to 40 points with a mean score of 27.0714 points and a standard deviation of 5.98349. Item 1, how do you feel about going to court soon, had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.71429 with a standard deviation of 1.13873, a test statistic of 2.347, and a p-value of 0.035. This indicates a statistically significant decrease in court-related stress. Item 2, how do you feel about being a witness in court, had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.75 with a standard deviation of 1.22081, a test statistic of 2.299, and a p-value of 0.039. This indicates a statistically significant decrease in court-related stress. Item 3, when you go to court soon, how would you feel about having an attorney ask you questions in court? Had a mean difference from pre to post test of negative 0.17857 with a standard deviation of 1.6 0.1254, a test statistic of negative 0.414, and a p-value of 0.685. This indicates a statistically insignificant increase in course-related stress. Item 4, how would you feel about answering questions in front of a judge had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.75 with a standard deviation of 1.88873, a test statistic of 1.486, and a p-value of 0.161. This indicates a statistically insignificant decrease in court-related stress. Item 5, how would you feel about answering questions in front of a lot of strange adults in court had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.67857 with a standard deviation of 1.53932, a test statistic of 1.649, and a p-value of 0.123. This indicates a statistically insignificant decrease in court-related stress. Item 6, when you go to court soon, how would you feel if you thought people did not believe you had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.75 with a standard deviation of 0.89335, a test statistic of 3.141, and a p-value of 0.008. This indicates a statistically significant decrease in court-related stress. Item 7, how would you feel if you did not know the answers to the questions you were asked in court had a mean difference from pre to post test of 1.21429 with a standard deviation of 1.42389, a test statistic of 3.191, and a p-value of 0.007. This indicates a statistically significant decrease in court-related stress. Item 8, how would you feel about answering embarrassing questions in court had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.89286 with a standard deviation of 1.30352, a test statistic of 0.289, and a p-value of 0.024. This indicates a statistically significant decrease in court-related stress. Item 9, when you go to court soon, how would you feel about answering questions in court in front of a person who may have hurt you had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.10714 with a standard deviation of 1.38922, a test statistic of 0.289, and a p-value of 0.777. This indicates a statistically insignificant decrease in court-related stress. Lastly, item 10, how would you feel about crying in court had a mean difference from pre to post test of 0.57143 with a standard deviation of 1.15787, a test statistic of 1.847, and a p-value of 0.088. This indicates a statistically insignificant decrease in court-related. Questions 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8 are all related to how children felt about going to court, being a witness, how they felt about the possibility of people not believing them, not knowing the answers to the questions they were asked, and being asked embarrassing questions in court. These questions all showed statistically significant decreases in court-related stress. Question 3 is related to how children feel about being asked questions by an attorney and showed a statistically insignificant increase in court-related stress. Questions 4, 5, 9, and 10 are related to answering questions in front of a judge, in front of a lot of strange people, in front of someone who may have hurt them, and crying in court. These questions showed statistically insignificant decreases in court-related stress. Most notably, being asked questions by an attorney was the only question where stress was increased, though not statistically significant, may be attributed to a lack of knowledge of what an attorney is or does prior to coming to kids' court school. Overall, total scores and overall stress were reduced by an average of about 6.5 points after attending kids' court school. Results from this preliminary data suggest that the remote version is effective in statistically significantly reducing court-related anticipatory anxiety in children participating in the court process as witnesses. While remote delivery was acutely necessitated by the COVID-19 pandemic and some services are returning to in-person, difficulty in attending in-person programming due to imminent calendaring of court proceedings, limited transportation resources, rural location, and scheduling conflicts with other mandated services necessitates the development and continued use of a remote delivery option. Given the rural nature of the state of Nevada, the remote delivery has the ability to increase service provision to children in need at a greater rate and greater reach.